Hey guys, so I have a short video for you today, piggybacking off of Charmaine's video, one of her recent ones. This video here, where she showed her ugliest plants. I thought I'd round up some of my most ugly plants. I've picked out 5 plants to show you. Don't get me wrong, I have more ugly plants than this, but these are 5 plants that are really like, they're ugly. They make me look at them with so much pity. Basically the plants that spark the most pity from me are the plants that I chose for today. So I have 5 plants to show you. I'm gonna show you what they are and the story behind how they came to look this way. Charmaine did warn me that if I were to post a video like this, I have to give my game plan for how I'm gonna fix it. Otherwise, I'll just be flooded with unsolicited advice. So I will tell you my game plan if there is one. I'm gonna try to keep this video under 30 minutes if I can, because it is 9:30 and it's work day tomorrow. It is actually my last work day before vacation, so I'm very excited about that. But that said, I have a lot to do this weekend and all of next week is totally packed, so I need to keep things efficient, so let's get started. Kicking it off with a plant that some of you would have seen before if you've watched my plant tour, my most recent plant room tour, and also one of Charmaine's videos where we compared plants. I'll throw up the thumbnail here where we compare like who grew it better. That was a fun video, by the way. If you haven't seen it, make sure you watch it. I will link in the description because that was really fun to film and I want to do it again. But I showed this plant in both of those videos. Maybe there is someone out there who randomly thought, hey, I wonder how Alice's Glorious is doing. Well, I'm here to report that it still looks like this. It's hanging on by a thread. So this is my Philodendron Glorious. It was maybe like to about here when I showed this in Charmaine's video. And since then it's grown all of this. And look at the newest leaf. It's ripped through itself because it can't unfurl properly. It's not fed properly. It's not watered properly. So I think we're at a point where basically I need to just cut it up into single nodes, propagate them and see which one grows the best, because there's no saving this top part. Like there's no point in saving this top part because there's just so many leafless nodes where like the leaves have aborted or failed and crisped off. And oftentimes when this happens, where like it pushes out a leaf and the leaf is like brown before it even unfurls, this can be due to lack of airflow, so the leaf is rotting inside the sheath. That's not the case with this one, I don't believe. I think it's just the leaf never fully forms because there's a lack of water and nutrients, and therefore it kind of aborts that mission and then moves on to the next one. This happens with my Melanochrysum a lot, but I think that's just because Milano is kind of a little bitch. We know this plant desperately needs a pole and it desperately needs to be potted up in a better substrate. It is, oh my goodness. There's perlite all over the floor and I've just snapped the top of the plant off. And now it's ugly. Okay, so I mean, that kind of solves a bit of the problem. I was gonna chop that part off anyways. So as you can see down here, the roots are in substrate, but the stem is barely in the substrate. I think what I would do is like, do you see this node right here? Right where my pinky is, where the aerial roots are? I think I would chop it right here. In fact, just so I can't put this off any longer, we're gonna do it right now. Okay, so right here, let's chop it down here actually. I'm gonna chop it right here. Got it. All right, so I think what we're gonna do, oh, it smells like philodendron. We're gonna root it from here and then we're going to get him on a pole. I don't think there's like much point in keeping this top part separate. We might as well, we're gonna do it right now. We're gonna chop it above here as well. That could be a plant. This right here. But it's a bottom cutting, so okay, we're gonna keep cutting. We're gonna cut here. And yeah, this can be rooted on its own. This can be rooted. That will grow, no problem. And that will grow. So I'll probably throw all 3 of these into one pot, root them together once they show growth. See, this is what happened the first time. I did that and then I didn't put it on a pole. and then that happened. I'm gonna say that I'm going to get this on a pole once it starts to grow and root. You know what? Any one of you can feel free to follow up with me in like 3 months to see if I've gotten this onto a pole. Actually, no, 2 months. In February, in January. Feel free to follow up with me and just say, how's the Glorious doing? And just out of pure fear of that comment coming, I'm going to hold myself accountable to getting this on a pole. The thing is, with Glorious, I've kind of given up trying with it. Not that like I think it's a very difficult plant, it's just that this, by the way, is garbage. Not that I think it's that difficult of a plant. I think that because I've never been amazing at sizing up climbers, I just gave up trying that hard. I've already said on the record that 2023 is going to be the year of me conquering climbers, so this will be my first project. So now we're left with 3 rootless cuttings with some aerial root growth, and the bottom, which, let's be honest, is probably garbage. I don't know. Maybe I'll donate this one. This plant has lots of sentimental value for me because this is one of the very first plants Charmaine ever gifted me. So it holds a lot of value to me. So this will always be with me. I'm making a vow to try a little bit harder. I love it when I film and like I create more work for myself in the process. Okay, next one. This is a plant I've never ever shown before on my channel. Don't focus on my face. This is a Dorstenia lancifolia. This is one of the few Codex plants that I have. I got this maybe 2 years ago, something like that. I've had this for a very long time and I don't know how this plant survived the summer declutter because this has been nothing but a headache for me. I'm gonna throw up a photo right here of what this plant is supposed to look like. See, it's not quite the same. So there's no foliage on here. You might be wondering why it looks like this. This plant, I don't know how. I had this for such a long time and suddenly this plant became like the mothership for all the mealybugs. This plant was the source of my mealybugs in my living room. So this one lives in a shelf with a lot of succulents in my living room. You can probably see right here at the tip. If I can find, yeah, right here. Do you see that mealybug egg sac? So I don't know how it happened, but this plant just started to produce mealybugs. I've gone to the extent of like taking it out of this pot, removing all the substrate from its roots, putting the whole thing in alcohol for hours. It was probably like 50-50 isopropyl alcohol and water. And then I would rinse it off and scrub it clear of mealybugs. And then I'd pot it into fresh soil with systemic granules inside. 2 weeks later, the mealybugs would be back. And the plant keeps growing, but it's like just continuously ejaculating mealybugs. I really should just get rid of this plant. I think it's so cute in a way because it kind of looks like a tiny little palm tree, like a tiny little coconut tree. I've treated it with different systemics as well. So on top of the systemic granules, like the bonide granules, I've also used a different bonide which has a different active ingredients. I'm blanking on the name, but it's the one that smells like rotten vegetables. I've used that one. I've alcoholed this plant more times than I can count. I get a Q-tip and I really get into those crevices. And I swear the mealybugs like live inside here. They've got this little like hive, like a base. And every now and then it all like kind of come out of the tip of the plant. So yeah, that's why it looks like this. At one point, I'll see if I can find a photo. I might not be able to find the photo, but at one point it didn't have any foliage. It looked like this, but it just had a single flower coming out the top and it just looked like a, you know, like one of those fascinator hats that British people wear. It basically looked like a turd wearing a fascinator hat. For so many reasons, I hate this plant, and for so many reasons, I think it's hilarious and I want to keep it and grow it. But maybe I should just kind of like grow it in a dome or something, so just to isolate it from other plants, because this plant just keeps producing mealybugs. So yeah, I don't know what else I could do for it. It grows under Monios T5 grow lights, which a lot of my Hoyas and succulents grow under. I don't think it's a light issue. I don't think it's a nutrient issue. I don't think it's a watering issue. I really think it's just like the mealybugs attack it. It drops all its leaves. The Codex part of the plant continues to grow. I don't know much about caudiciforms, so don't come for me. I think this turd guy just needs You know what? I don't know what it needs because I've tried and I'm not gonna get rid of him. So if anyone has any suggestions on what I should do, here is me asking for advice on this one. Mealybugs is a pest that I've come to terms with always existing on that shelf because no matter what I do, they just keep coming back. This next one is ugly, but not for lack of trying. I really do baby this plant, and yet it looks like this. This is an Anthurium SUBSIGNATUM papillaminum cross from Amanda, and trust me when I say that this makes me very sad. I am so stumped as to why it's yellowing. This had so many leaves when I got it. Granted, I did separate 2 offshoots, one for Jing and one for Charmaine. I've probably lost 3 or 4 leaves in my time off of this main part of the plant. These are the last 2 leaves and both of them are going. You can see obviously this one, but this one is yellow all over and I don't see root growth at all. I see roots, I see live roots that are like green, but it has not rooted at all for me. When I first got it, it was first planted in pond and I had it in my tent. It didn't get crazy amount of light. It got a lot of like dappled light, a lot of kind of shaded light, and it was yellowing. It dropped a couple of leaves. I noticed it had some roots that were rotting, but it wasn't anything crazy. It was just like the tips of some of the roots. So I removed those and then I planted into tree fern fiber because this is just kind of like a bit airier, a bit less heavy of a mix. And then I thought, okay, maybe it doesn't want to be that hot. It doesn't want to be as warm as it in the tent. So I moved it into the EXO behind me. It's fairly close to the light. I've never ever let this substrate dry out. And I see this plant every day because it's like on a very visible part of the EXO. And this leaf just taunts me on a daily basis. It's not just that it's yellowing. Why is it gotta be orange? Why is it gotta be orange? I want to ask Amanda what the deal with this plant is because she was telling me like it pups like crazy. I think it was this plant that she was referring to that it like always produces a lot of pups and it won't even produce a root for me. I don't know. I really haven't had my rooting methods fail on anthuriums very often, but this one I really didn't expect it to be so finicky because it is a hybrid and I thought it would just be a little bit hardier. Like the leaves are so leathery and so thick, so like I don't think that it needs a lot of humidity, and I can grow pappies. I've never grown a subsignatum, but I didn't think that it was a particularly finicky species either. So yeah, orange guy, he's very sad. Next up is my AGLAONEMA PICTUM tricolor. This is a plant that I think a lot of people struggle with, and it's pretty common for it to be just like a long twig with like a few leaves on top. Ooh, it looks like it's activating some growth down at the bottom. Why? You see this? There's a little pimple coming out here and possibly another pimple right here. This one looks like it's about to pop though. You can see the green coming out here. I used to blast this one with a lot of light, and I was recently advised not to give it that much light and not to give it too much, is it humidity? Or give it lots of humidity. One of those two. This one lives in the small EXO that just like down here, which houses a lot of plants I don't really have a spot for, but I just want to keep it in higher humidity so they don't like keep dying and they kind of dry out a little bit slower so I can keep on top of watering a little bit better. This lives there in much lower light than it used to, and I can't remember if I was advised not to let it dry out or to let it dry out, but in any case I don't let it dry out. And it's also in one of these like slitted pots that I don't really like anymore. Yeah, it's not dying. It's a little sad looking, it's a little pathetic, which is basically the theme of this video. It's in an awkward stage of its life. I feel like this is kind of like the equivalent of like kind of plucking all your eyebrows off, and one day, you know, when this plant grows more foliage, maybe it's going to like look back and be like, why did I pluck all my eyebrows off? It's not even really rooted. I remember at one point this had like a lot of roots, and I think the majority of them are gonzos, and I think maybe I see like 1 or 2 roots at the sides. I think the majority of this plant's troubles is underwatering. like me forgetting about it, maybe too much light in the beginning, and the leaves would kind of get really, really bleached. And there was one like big long drought where it dropped all the leaves here at the bottom. And also this flowers for me fairly regularly. Every time it would flower, it'd be like a leaf and then like 2 flowers, and then a leaf and then like 2 flowers. So that probably zapped a lot of energy that it didn't have. And in order to support the flowers, it needed to have a root system that it also didn't have. So yeah, not a plant I super care about, but will continue to grow, because I know that if this plant were ever to like grow a lot of foliage and size up and get like the real kind of more mature tricolor leaves where it actually looks like camo, then I would absolutely like just be thrilled to have this plant. I know it's not an easy plant, but if I was ever able to do that, it would be very gratifying. So I'm holding on to this plant. I will continue to try to grow this plant. I think that the worst is behind us. Okay, so I've done 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, we're already at the 5th plant. So this last plant is by far my ugliest alocasia. This is my alocasia green dragon, or Baginda dragon scale, that never gets water. I don't know why I potted it like this. With pond plants, this is in pond by the way, it's in a clear pot with pond, and don't be fooled by the water. This is one of the very few times it actually has water, which is why it looks like this. And we got this, let me pull that off. This was a stupid decision on my part to pot it like this. I was so excited to, okay, so basically when I got this plant, I bought this from the nursery with Charmaine, and these had just dropped in the nurseries, and we found like a whole bunch of them, and we were like, they're so beautiful, they're so dark. We thought these were quite a lot darker than ones that we had seen before, like this leaf here, which is surprisingly unscathed. And so we each bought one, and I potted it in pond, and it should have been potted in a clear vessel with pond with no drainage. That is probably the best thing that I could have done. But this just so happened to be a point when I had this pot, right? The speckle pot, which I thought was so cute, but it's like narrow and tall. So a typical 4-inch pot would not fit this very well, because it might fit the diameter, but it would just be hovering here. So if you were to water it, like a big puddle of water would sit here. Also at the same time, I had these like slitted pots that were quite tall. They're the narrow tall kinds. And these were always too tall for a cover pot. So I had just discovered that these two fit almost perfectly together. And I was so excited that I just potted an alocasia into it, and I shouldn't have. I really shouldn't have. And this never got the best light, and that's why the petioles are so crazy long and it's so reachy. And now it lives in a windowsill that doesn't get much light, and it's very cold, and there's an air vent next to it, so it's super, super, super dry. And that's the tragic story of the dragon scale. And basically this is what happens when you don't try. I don't know why, but I find the green dragon scale much more difficult than the silver dragon. Does anybody else find that? I also find this one easier to get leggy than the silver dragon as well. And I'm not saying that it's like a highly difficult plant and it's like so finicky that like there was no avoiding this. There was definitely, I could have avoided this for sure. My ugliest alocasia, which when a green dragon is really full and really big and beautiful, I just find them absolutely so gorgeous, so stunning. I love this leaf a lot. Just this like emerald green and the venation, I find this so much more beautiful than the silver dragon. There's just no explanation for how I've treated this plant. I have no excuses. I don't love this plant to use up one of my glass vessels for it, because glass vessels are kind of hard to come by. So what I could do for this plant is pot it into a plastic kind of pot, or like a deli cup kind of thing, which would be uglier than this setup, but it would definitely be easier for me to keep on top of the watering for it, because I would just be able to see that it needs water. I know it's not that difficult of an alocasia. I should be able to handle this plant if I were to really try. So I guess this video is like here's what happens when you get a little bit too busy and you stop trying. And that is 5 plants that are very incredibly pathetic, and their tragic backstories and what I plan on doing with them. Sorry I needed to keep this video very short this week because I have a jam-packed weekend and I basically have 24 hours to finish editing this video and getting it up on YouTube because I have no time on the weekend. I mentioned before that this weekend is our Planty White Elephant Christmas party, so that's going to be taking place at Charmaine's house on Saturday, and we're gonna have like a dinner with all our dogs, and I will definitely film. That video will go up on Thursday. I feel like this month of like filming 2 videos a week is going to go by like so quickly because I have so many ideas in my head of what I want to be filming and so many things I want to be doing. I think this whole month is gonna just go by like so quickly, which is good and also bad. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please remember to give it a like. I hope you're having a lovely Christmassy, cozy, festive, warm, fuzzy weekend. I love you so much, and I will see you on Thursday. Mwah!